Sharon Anatosh with Sky Marble and Granite. Many of you know me as AKA Sharon Stone. And today our focus is going to be on creative remodeling in small spaces. And as my guest today, I have Lenny Berger. Hi, Lenny.
Hello.
With his company is the Handymensch Home Remodeling. And a little bit of background about Lenny. He started this business in 2007. He started as a handyman service and then went into full-scale remodeling interiors, kitchen and bath areas, and that's what he does today. He also has 35 years of business experience, and I think the name of his company truly is an attribute to Lenny himself. So for those of you that don't know, a mensch is a person of integrity and sense of what is right, and he very much typifies that. So Lenny, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Sure. And we're going to talk about a small bathroom project that he did, and I want to also congratulate Lenny. He won numerous awards for the Contractor of the Year with the National Association of Remodelers in the Industry in the Metro DC area. And this was one of the projects that won a grand award. So talk a little bit about this project.
So this project had two components. There was a powder room remodel and then an interior renovation which involved a kitchen for the client. And the powder room remodel was kind of interesting because the client had gone to Oaxaca, Mexico, which is in the southern part of Mexico, has a very high artisan community. And they had picked up a number of black clay tiles that were square tiles that had different shapes on them. And they came to us and they said, well, we want to use this as the inspiration for the powder room, figure something out for us. Right. So we had to not only come up with a way to display these tiles, but also then build a powder room project around it. And that's what we did.
Excellent. So I know you do many projects. And why did you select this particular project for the Contractor of the Year?
I selected this particular project, one, because it involved a lot of creativity. It wasn't somebody coming in and saying, build this, do this. It was the client saying, hey, we have the basis for this, and we want you to figure out something that works around it. And most people would see a powder room and think that that is a very tiny space, not a space that would get a lot of thought. And this actually ended up being the single most complicated part of the entire project.
I understand. And talk a little bit about some of the details you used in that project. I know you repurposed a mirror and how you did the floating vanity. Talk a little bit about that.
So we first started off with the black clay tiles and came up with the concept of putting them in a frame and mounting them and then actually backlighting them because they had, so this way the pattern would shine through, and then we also put it on a motion detector so that when you walked into the bathroom it would illuminate automatically, so it actually was placed over top of the toilet. Once we came up with that concept, we then looked at the other part of the powder room, which was the sink wall. So the space was always very tight, so we said, well, we don't want to have a vanity, and we batted around some different ideas, so we ended up doing a floating half-moon countertop, which was actually a Brazilian stone with a vessel sink on top of it, and then a waterfall, because that area actually has some kind of very interesting water features in Mexico. And then we did a stone quartz wall behind that. And then we took a mirror that the client had had in that room for about 15 years, but it no longer went with this design, so we actually ended up putting a new silver and black patina on this mirror, which had all been hand carved in order to actually now make it bring everything together.
Tiles.
And that's everything, so that's how we kind of brought everything together. And then below the sink, there's actually another piece of stone where you can put extra toilet paper and things like that. Yep.
Perfect. That's beautiful. Wonderful creativity. Love it. So let's talk about, I mean, this kind of typifies as well good qualities of a contractor. So what do you believe as a contractor and being in the industry, what do you think are qualities of a reputable contractor that people should look for when they're selecting a contractor?
So I think the first thing is making sure that you have a plan, then you create a proposal, and then you execute. And I think that a big issue in the industry is that people are out there writing these proposals by allowances. The client doesn't actually have enough detailed information in order to be able to do this. So for something like this powder room, without us actually having a plan and knowing what we were doing, there was no way to figure out exactly how much time and effort was going to be involved.
Allocated to it.
Exactly. So even if a project is bigger, then we want to be doing that design first, making the selections, and then when the team shows up, we have a plan so that when you have certain specific elements that have to be installed in a specific manner. So for example, for the powder room, unlike a normal powder room where the plumber would just go on autopilot and say, well, here's where I'm going to put the plumbing rough in, or the electrician's going to wire up an outlet. These had very specific drawings that was like, you must put the rough in right here where I tell you. And there is no vanity. Same thing for the electrician. The electrician was initially very confused by what we were trying to do with the motion detector. So we drew it up, we said, wire it up like this. And then at the end, when everything was hooked up, he was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
And you're limited with the space as well, so you have to, I would think, drill down even deeper.
That's correct, and then also that's where the project planning comes in, because obviously only one person can work in a space like this at a time.
Correct. So I just wanted to ask one more thing. Let's talk about a little bit other projects that you do. So Del, I just touched on it, but let our audience know kind of what other types of work you do.
So our specialty are the small to medium-sized interior remodeling projects. We like to say that we don't add space to your house, but we make the space that you have work for you. So the other part of this project was taking a small galley kitchen and a sitting room, tearing down those walls, opening up a load-bearing wall to the living room in order to make a more open floor plan, but also taking a very tiny kitchen and turning it into a true chef's kitchen. So there was a significant amount of upfront design in terms of, well, what do we need to store in terms of the appliances and in terms of what kind of counter space do you need? The client had some very specific things, so we actually measured the client when it came to doing the wall oven. This was a case where we were trying to figure out the height of where the oven should go, so we basically had the client stand there with their arms out, and we measured and we said, that's the height that's going to go, and then we optimized storage for each of those locations.
And I think one thing this brings up, I think a lot of times people that are getting into remodeling don't realize the level of detail and all the points that you have to think about to make it work in their living space.
And that's exactly correct. If you're interviewing contractors, people focus on price first, and that's a mistake. The first thing you should be focused on is, does this contractor understand what I'm trying to do? If you just use your kitchen and you make coffee in the morning, then you might not be the same as if you like to cook and you're using it multiple times a day. Do you like to bake, right? Then that has different implications. Do you have a lot of small appliances? So we're asking a lot of questions up front so that we're sure that when we make recommendations, that we're giving you the things that actually are going to work for you, not, well, what's the lowest cost way to win the bid? Let's get the project that's actually going to work for the customer.
And I see this trend more and more where both husband and wife are cooking. So
yes.
Sometimes they want an extra sink, or they want space conducive to both. One bakes, one cooks. That they have,
you don't want people on top of each other.
Exactly.
In this case, when we designed the kitchen, it actually was a very long rectangle, and we did two sinks, a main sink down by the cooktop, and the customer actually wanted column refrigerator and freezers, which are very large for this standard 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath house, but that was at the other end of the kitchen. So that had a prep sink, both with garbage disposals, so that you could just turn around from the refrigerator, chop vegetables, and you were not standing on top of each other. So those are the kind of things, whether it's a project like this, or a powder room or something in between, where it's really important to think about how the space is going to be used. We've done other projects where we're just opening up walls for people to create more of an open floor plan, and people don't think about, well, how am I going to turn the lights on and off? Because now there's more than one way to enter and leave a room. Let's think all that through, so you're not there after drywall's up going, hey, we should put recessed lights in this room.
Exactly.
Things like that.
And we're the same way. We are big believers of Sky planning. If you plan and really meticulously plan, that's going to be a successful project.
And I think that's one of the other projects that we worked on together was the one where we had the dual cooktops.
Right.
And that was rather interesting because it was very unusual. The husband wanted gas, the wife wanted induction, and their compromise was we're going to put both in the cooktop.
Exactly.
Well, that actually required a significant amount of planning and then also a coordination on the countertop size to make all of this fit. And that's what we like, of all of our partners, but especially Sky, that you spend time looking at those details, and that was right when COVID started.
Exactly.
So we had to get part of the kitchen installed and then come back and do the cooktop.
Yes.
We did a phase, and that's the difference between just being a bunch of trades, but really, I always describe our business as we're the conductors of an orchestra.
I agree.
And having key players in that is very critical to giving everybody the final end product. If you have people that are in and they're out of tune, then that's not a good experience. And that's why we like working with Sky.
Well, thank you, and we love working with you. So for our audience today, I hope you have found some wonderful and useful information. I encourage you to check out Lenny's website. It's www.handymensch.com, or email lenny@handymensch.com. You all have a great day, and we will see you next time. Thank you.